Alouettes, you worry me. 20 minutes away from 3, you're in afternoons. My name's Rochelle. Did you do an apprenticeship? Was it something that you were encouraged to do, that you wanted to do? And do you have a child now in secondary school that is thinking about an apprenticeship but is not sure what to do and whether or not or how accessible they are now? So the federal budget has just been released and there may be some changes that may create more apprenticeships. And my next guest coming up in just a tick has spent some time in Switzerland and they've done it a little differently there. So we may ask whether or not we can look at what they've done and whether we can implement some of those great ideas here.
The show that has won the hearts and minds of Australia returns to iView.
What would having a job mean for you?
Everything.
Employable Me.
It's about my ability, not disability.
Follow the extraordinary job seekers.
This is my big adventure.
Daring to dream.
Most people could not have done what you've done.
We're terribly lucky. I'm richer than you.
Employable Me.
Seize the opportunity and just take it.
Yeah!
Watch now on iView.
On ABC Radio Melbourne, you're with Rochelle Hunt.
And Eliza has actually just sent me the photograph of her dad. So he was at work with her mum, so they worked together, her mum and dad. Her mum fell over and her dad, instead of going over and checking if she was okay, took a selfie. And it's now got a life of its own and it has its own following and lots of people follow it. And now I have that photograph as well. Well, shame on you, Dad, is still what I say there. So let's think about when you're at school. And what do you think about? You think about maybe staying till year 12, getting a job or an apprenticeship. But most likely these days you may be thinking about or encouraged to go to university in hope of landing your dream career. But increasingly we're finding that a degree is no guarantee of getting a job. And many students find themselves following a career path that they have no interest in pursuing. So is there another way? Well, according to my next guest, Gary Workman, yes, there is. But it does require serious culture shift in Australia. He's the CEO of Apprenticeship Employment Network and joins me now. Gary, thank you. You've just returned from Switzerland and that has a really interesting approach to apprenticeships and their apprenticeship model. It's hailed as one of the best in the world. What do they do so differently there?
Good afternoon, Rochelle. We've just come back from a trip to Switzerland over the last couple of weeks. Their vocational education system's regarded as one of the best in the world. They have a fairly unique model, which in Australia we could actually do, but we've seemed to have, progressed our students a little bit longer in the secondary school system. So at age 15 in Switzerland, 2/3 of their youth have to make a decision about what vocational pathway they want to take and start what we would know here in Australia as a school-based apprenticeship, where they'll go to school a couple of days a week and they'll actually go into the workplace for 3 or 4 days, depending on the industry and the trade.
And why is that so good, do you think? I mean, if I think about it, age 15, I actually did know what I wanted to do, but none of my mates did. Like, that's a fairly young age to say, okay, well, here's what you're going to go and do, and this is what you've said you want to do. Is that not too young?
Look, I think it is young. Certainly in Australia, we don't make those decisions till we're 18, 19, 20 plus these days. I think they provide a lot more opportunity for young people to experience multiple career choices. They have those conversations at a lot earlier age, and you're not locked into going down that pathway for the rest of your life. So it's a bit of an exploratory process.
And is that mandatory? So if you're within school, you're 15 and you're asked, okay, so what is it that you want to do? And maybe you say it's banking or it's finance. How long do you stay and how long does that apprenticeship run? And what if you decide you hate it or you're really crap at it and you want to change?
Yeah, so their vet system is a lot more flexible. So they certainly allow people to change career paths if they want to go, depending on the qualification, banking, insurance, business IT, those sorts of things might be 1 or 2 years. The more traditional trades that we would know as apprenticeships here, maybe still 3 or 4 years in duration. But because they have 70% of their youth going through that pathway, there's no stigma attached to, I'm starting an apprenticeship or a traineeship, and there's certainly really strong pathways for youth, and they're encouraged in terms of that lifelong learning mentality to continue on training after their apprenticeship. Many will return to university at a later stage, but they've got better hands-on skills.
Yeah, right.
And they can apply that knowledge a little bit better in a theoretical environment.
So other than that, though, what do you think makes that model so successful versus what we do or what other countries do?
Yeah, when you look at their results, youth unemployment's less than 3%. So that's the key driver from our perspective. We spend a lot of money and effort on training and career advice, but I don't think we have a strong enough link back to what the employers need, the skills that we need for the future, and linking young people to a job directly at that age of 15.
What is our current model? If I think about apprenticeships, I think about apprenticeships that my friends were doing or my cousins were doing sort of in the 80s, in the 90s. Vastly different. We had technical schools, we had TAFEs. Apprenticeships were huge, and it was a legitimate, a serious, a big opportunity or industry to follow. And then that kind of just felt like it stopped.
It has, and I grew up in that system myself. I went to a tech school, and you had an opportunity to try, home economics and sheet metal and engineering and a bit of sport. You tried a whole range of different things. So I think in the 80s that probably helped a lot of young people understand what they were good at. Some people had a theoretical academic approach. Other people liked to work with their hands, and that sort of helped you make a better career choice. Where I think today young people are encouraged to stay at school, which I think is a good thing. But we really focus on attaining that Year 12 completion mark. That's really geared towards an academic result that then the universities can use to give you a ranking and place you in various university pathways. And I think that's still a great pathway, but we also need to look at, well, what are some of the alternatives? And I think the Swiss model, where you're having that conversation a lot earlier, giving young people a chance to try a number of things, and then go into a workplace, have a real job, understand what it takes to have a job, all those work readiness skills, and then also understand how the academic world applies to a real job situation, I think really helps. Gary
Workman is with you, CEO of the Apprenticeship Employment Network. 1300 222 774. Kate in Ballarat says the kids our school go to in Ballarat offers a school-based apprenticeship and VCAL and VCE, and it's a private school, it's all-rounded. And this, I did automotive apprenticeship. It started in 2010, school-based apprenticeship, and was finished by my 20th birthday. We struggled to find anyone that had any skills to even sign up for an apprenticeship. I now left the industry because of poor conditions and pay last year to go to uni, and I'm now studying environmental science. Is that common to hear those kind of feedback?
I think young people just haven't got the opportunity to explore multiple things. They're sort of channeled down one direction. In the apprenticeship system, you've got to sign up and commit to that qualification from day one without having any real knowledge. We only have about 50% completion rates in Australia in all of our vocational programs, so that's another vast difference to the Swiss model. Their completion rates are well over 90%. So,
and pay and treatment of apprentices and how it works, and look, it hasn't had a great track record of late. How much does that work against you and your industry and wanting to promote people to think about apprenticeships?
Yeah, look, the pay initially is low, and I think a lot of young people are put off by that, but you've got to look at the alternative. Going to university for 4 years, you have to find...
It'll cost you a lot of money.
It will cost you a lot of money in a loan, but you also have to have a part-time job if you want to earn anything. That part-time job is rarely linked to what you're actually studying. So again, you're sort of doing multiple things that might not necessarily help your career. We find there's a lot of vacancies in certain apprenticeship areas.
In which areas?
Automotive is a great example.
Is that because people are scared of there not being any work in that industry, though?
I think the media noise around the auto manufacturing sector closing down, people already assume...
Is that media noise, or is that just fact?
Well, I think that's a fact, but we also have 5 million cars in Victoria that we have to service every year. You've got autonomous cars, you've got 3D printing. That industry actually has
rethinking the industry a little.
It has some really exciting sort of technology emerging, but people think of the old corner mechanic and it's a dirty industry and it's low paid. They actually can't see.
I think about what I pay my mechanic, and I'm thinking it's a good industry to get into. We're going to have a chat with Dustin Cross in just a moment, who is the Regional Trainee of the Year as a farm apprentice. But I'd love to hear from you as well. 1300 222 774. The federal budget has allocated, I think, $525 million to address skills shortages and to boost apprenticeships. How would you like to see that done?
Look, I think it's a good initiative that they announced yesterday or last night. I think they're on the right track. They're starting to allocate a little bit more money for some employer incentives to try and encourage them back into the system. There's money there for foundation skills, sort of national career training and advice, some additional training hubs. So, look, I think they're heading in the right direction. Again, this conversation needs to continue for a number of years. We need to get the schools back into thinking.
Well, that's it. It's changed so much. You almost have to rebuild it, don't you?
Yeah, so we've had a long culture now of sending our kids to university and staying in education as long as they can, which, again, is not a bad thing, but we need to look at what the alternatives are for employers and the skill shortages that we have. Gary
Workman, CEO of Apprenticeship Employment Network, and Dustin Cross is with you. He's a livestock trainer. He's a Regional Trainee of the Year as a farm apprentice. Dustin, welcome to Afternoons.
Good afternoon, Michelle. Good afternoon, Gary. How are you?
Mate, tell us a little bit about how you got an apprenticeship and what that process was like for you.
Yeah, so the process of getting an apprenticeship that I got out on a farm, in Year 10, everyone in my year level at my local school, we got an opportunity to do 1 week of work placement. And so I decided to do it out on a farm. I grew up on a small farm of 40 acres. My dad's a builder, and I didn't really want to do it with him. I wanted to do something different, so I decided to do a week's worth of work placement out on a farm in Year 10, and I really loved it and enjoyed it. And then in Year 11, through doing VCAL, I got to do 1 day a week out there, and then in Year 12, I wanted to complete Year 12, and so I was advised by our careers teacher that a school-based apprenticeship 2 days a week out there would be the best option to still be able to do Year 12 and get a qualification.
And did it open up opportunities that you didn't really see that were there for you prior?
Yeah, definitely. Once I left Year 12, I continued to work out on the farm for an extra 2 years and got a Certificate 4 of Agriculture. And then after that, I did further studies at our local ag college, Longanong College, and did an advanced diploma of agribusiness management. And through that course, I ended up going over to America for 3 months and doing work placement on a dairy farm.
And what did that lead to?
That led to coming home, finishing my advanced diploma, and then getting a job as a livestock agent here in Horsham.
It's interesting too, if when you were speaking to your parents, or maybe you were speaking to your teachers or career advisors, were they pushing you towards this being a really good option for you? Did you have lots of options in front of you, Dustin? What made you go down this particular path of school-based apprenticeship?
The main reason I went down this path wasn't because I had mum and dad pushing me to do an apprenticeship or my careers advisors to do an apprenticeship. I wanted to get Year 12, but I also knew I didn't want to go to university. I wanted to get straight into work, and so the chance of doing 2 days a week out of school on a farm and then 3 days a week at school just seemed absolutely perfect for me.
And in a weird way, does it help you? Lots of people hate school. It's not, you're not reinventing anything by, many people don't like it. Yep. The fact that you spent 2 days not within the school environment, not within the classroom, but did that sort of keep you in school and keep your interest in school relevant because you had a vision for why you were there and it gave you a bit of purpose and identity, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it definitely did. Because I had the 2 days a week out on the farm, I sort of got a break from that school life and got a taste of what it was like to be an adult. But at the same time...
And then when you're at school, you know why you're there and it makes sense for you. And you go, okay, well, I've got to work hard because I can actually see why I should work hard now. Yeah,
the end goal that was in front of you sort of becomes a bit easier to reach, which is finishing school.
Good on you, mate. And so what's your day-to-day working life like now? What do you do? What's your official title?
So my official title, I'm a livestock trainee, so I've gone back into the apprenticeship system and now doing a traineeship with a livestock agent company called Rodwell's, and my day-to-day work is basically going out with one of the qualified stock agents, assessing farmers' livestock, drafting them up, weighing them, and then every Tuesday and Wednesday we have a sale. So Tuesday afternoons, basically unloading trucks, counting sheep, scanning sheep and lambs with the new EID system, which is the electronic tag system. Yeah. And then on the Wednesdays is basically more counting, delivering, and spotting bids at the auction.
Counting sheep, and yet you don't fall asleep. That's great. Well, congratulations. It sounds like you've paved yourself a wonderful career, and one that can change and move with you and with industry as well, Dustin. Yeah,
it's an amazing job to have. It's an amazing industry to be a part of, and if I didn't do my apprenticeship out on the farm, and then if I didn't go off to Longmenon College, I probably wouldn't be in the position that I am today.
Dustin, thanks for chatting with us.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
Good on you, Dustin Cross. What a polite young man he is, hey? You breed them well, those apprentices.
Dustin's a great example.
Yeah.
You can start at a younger age and then continue with your schooling. So, a lot of people think that the apprenticeship is the end of their career, the end of their training, but it can just be the beginning. So, great.
Is there a little stigma around, and maybe it's just an Australian thing, that, you have to go and get an apprenticeship, you're not academic enough, or you're not smart enough to do this, or to go to university, that we sort of look down on them a little bit?
I think that can be true in some schools and communities. Parents have aspirational goals for their kids to do better than they did, which is natural. But I think we miss out on the conversation about what are you good at, what would you like to do, what are you passionate about. And a lot of people, as you mentioned before, are really good with their hands, and they can start in that area and then really get the connection back to why they're doing an academic pathway in the future.
Well, Ben's just sent a message saying, Rochelle and Gary, this is a great conversation. I'm an electrician of 20 years. I finished VCE and then started. I've never stopped learning, and I'm employed by a great career of power generational people. I am now embarking on an engineering degree with support from my employer. I wouldn't change anything about my career. I feel I have the maturity, the practical and life experience that makes me great at what I'm doing. And it's quite a long text, but basically is saying that it's an incredible way to learn and to ensure that you're always employable. Hi, Paul.
Hi there, Rochelle. How are you?
Good. Not long till we go to the news, but you've seen some similar models. What have you seen?
I have, yeah. Look, I was fortunate recently to go to Canada and the US to investigate some models they apply, and one that was really fascinating was a program called CareerWise in Colorado, which was based on the Swiss model. So they actually went as a state, about 20 people went across, and they investigated the Swiss system and actually implemented that back in Colorado, which has been extremely successful. And that was just, really interesting to see the way that the industry was buying into the development and training of young people.
Well, it's hopefully something, Paul, thank you, something that we're hoping to do here, Gary. Do you think that it'll happen? I mean, to quote Seinfeld, are the wheels in motion in any way?
Look, I think there's been lots of conversation, and we've certainly gone through quite a number of vet reviews over the last few years. I think most of the recommendations are heading in the right direction. We need a stronger connection between employers and industry, and then the training needs to follow. So I think from our perspective, employment needs to be the number one goal, and then you do the training that suits that employment opportunity, not necessarily the other way around, which a lot of us are heading down that path.
And Jane, if you're quick, I'd love to hear from you, because often when we think about apprenticeships, we think about men, but you've gone and got yourself an apprenticeship.
No, I haven't, but my son has.
Oh, okay, and he's got that a little later in life?
Okay, much later in life. He's 38, still about to finish his adult apprenticeship as an electrician. But ever since he was a baby, he was always playing with wires.
That's what you want.
At 16, he was putting in PowerPoints in my house. Applied for apprenticeships as a youth, but never got one. Ended up doing hospitality for a while. Then went off to the mines. Got a lot of tickets behind him. Came back. Now he's doing his drain.
Great. Well, that's wonderful, and it just shows that you can do it at any age. Jane, thank you. It's lovely to hear about your son. A text saying, what about for girls? I mean, has the gender stereotype, has that finally shifted?
We certainly still have that gender stereotype. hairdressing is predominantly females and childcare.
So I thought we were seeing more female electricians coming through. Is that just a...
There certainly is, and the ones that are in the sector have a higher profile, and they're trying to encourage more females at schools to look at other alternatives. The electrical apprenticeship is a great example where you can have multiple pathways. You can start with the hands-on skills and then move into other areas, and females are doing a great job in that sector.
Gary, it's wonderful to be able to pick your brain a little bit. Thank you, Gary Workman, CEO of the Apprenticeship Employment Network. It's coming up to the 3 o'clock news, a fascinating conversation after the news. You have to stick around.
When you want to know what's happening in the comedy festival...
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Very much. Lovely to be here. What?